Today's presentation is going to review 5 tips to increase your candidate response rate. The best candidates these days, as I'm sure you've all seen, are very hard to find and sometimes even harder to get a hold of. When you do finally track down that short list of great candidates and contact them, it can be really frustrating that much of the time they don't even respond. Their background and skills for a lot of these top candidates are in demand. There's a skill shortage that we're seeing in the market. And these candidates are likely being recruited by lots of other companies, which makes it really important to both make a good first impression and to differentiate yourself from the myriad of other offers that these candidates are likely receiving. So today's webinar is going to discuss how to grab their attention and get them to contact you back. So first we'll go ahead and do a quick introduction. I'm Jen Picard, and I'm in charge of marketing here at Bright. I market the products that we sell to recruiters called Bright Recruiter. The company's aim is to make the hiring process more efficient by both connecting job seekers to their best opportunities, as well as connecting employers to their top candidates. We have this machine learning algorithm, which is called the Bright Score, and it examines thousands of data points to find the best fit between these job seekers and your job openings. So we'll go ahead and get right into the presentation and share some tips on how to improve your candidate response rate. This presentation should be about 30 minutes long, and I'll go ahead and jump right into tip number 1. The first tip is to make sure that your offer is relevant. I don't know how many times I've been recruited for positions that really aren't relevant to my experience, either something in business development or sales, and it's honestly gotten to the point where I don't even want to respond to these anymore. The required skill sets are really similar to mine, so I can understand why I'm coming up in search results, especially if people are looking for me on LinkedIn or if they're looking for me on any other social networking site, or even just Googling somebody with my skill set. So a lot of the skill sets are really similar, and I could probably be successful in them if I wanted to make a career move, but my entire work history is in marketing, and I honestly love marketing, and anyone who really spent the time to look over my background would notice that. And so when a recruiter reaches out to me for something that's irrelevant, I realize that they probably did not take the time to research my background and the kind of position I'd likely be interested in. So actually the only reason I email them back is to let them know that they can find someone who might actually be interested by using our product, Bright Recruiter. So sorry if that's you. I've definitely wasted some of your in-mails, but yep, don't send me irrelevant offers. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Bright, we've developed the algorithm that I discussed earlier that matches your job description to the millions of candidates that have signed up on our site. So you know that the job candidates are both qualified and interested in hearing from you. But regardless of where you find your candidates, you should at least make sure that your opportunity is in line with their career progression by doing a little bit of research. So there's a LinkedIn poll that I saw that revealed that about half of the 14,000 respondents didn't actually mind getting emails from recruiters, and the other half didn't mind as long as they were relevant. So when I kind of read between the lines here, I can see that half of the respondents actually would be bothered by receiving an irrelevant offer, so I know I'm not the only one here. So that's why it's important to do a little research before reaching out so that you're not being completely irrelevant. And the next tip is how to make sure that your offer actually is relevant. You want to make it about them. Just because you think someone might be interested in your opportunity because their career progression would make sense to you, they might actually have other plans in mind. So going back to the poll we just discussed, the results show that respondents don't mind getting contacted by recruiters, but not that they would actually respond. So if you want to get them to respond to you, you never want to assume that you know what a relevant opportunity for any given candidate looks like. Instead, you should ask them what they would consider a great opportunity. You might find that they're not really interested in the opportunity you're currently working on, but at the very least, they'll respond to you so you can get to know them a little bit, and perhaps later on you can place them in a better role that fits their backgrounds and their interests. So here's a quick bonus tip for you. Do not ask for referrals right away. A lot of times, recruiters will send an email out saying, hey, I have this position that I'm looking to fill. Do you know anybody that would be interested? And what this does is that it shows the candidate that you don't really care about what they're looking for, and you're only trying to get your position filled. So you just don't look very genuine. And the other thing, too, is, I understand that this does happen every once in a while, but why would somebody give you a great referral? Why would somebody give you the contact information of a friend of theirs if you're not somebody that they know and trust? So you do want to make sure that you're being genuine when you reach out to candidates and that you build their trust, which will allow you to have higher response rates and potentially place them and their referrals either now or in the future. The third tip here is to pick up the phone. So it might be tempting to mass message an entire group of candidates with a generic message saying something like, I have an opportunity which I think would be a good fit for you, but I'd really like to set up a time to get to know a little bit more about your interests and your goals. You don't want to go into too much detail. Obviously, you have something that you want to talk to them about. Get right into why they should talk to you. They should talk to you because you want to help them find something that fits their interests and their goals. Sometimes the candidates can see right through this type of message, especially if you haven't mentioned anything specific about what in their background was interesting to you or why you think your opportunity would be worth their time. So a lot of the top candidates have received enough of these generic emails to know that you're not being genuine and to know that you kind of are sending out a mass message just trying to get anybody to possibly respond. So what I would recommend is calling the candidate whenever possible. At the very least, send them a direct, personalized email. So instead of just saying, I have an opportunity, I want to get to know a little bit more about you, say, I have an opportunity that I think would be a great fit for you because you have experience in X, Y, and Z, and it looks like your career is progressing toward this type of opportunity. Is this something that sounds like it would be in line with what you're looking to do? I'd love to take a few minutes of your time to discuss what your goals are for your career. So if you are going to send them a direct personalized email, sometimes their contact information can be a little bit more difficult to find. It makes it really easy to just push that in-mail connect button. But it really does make a difference to go that extra mile and connect with the candidate via phone. So at Bright, our clients have access to millions of email addresses and phone numbers through our system, Bright Recruiter. And because they have this direct contact information, they've seen up to a 70% response rate by reaching out with that personal contact information. So not only does this personal communication show that you're genuinely interested in placing the candidate in an appropriate role, but a phone call also gives you the opportunity to tailor your message according to their feedback. So you want to start by telling them why you're interested. Share really specific details that show you've done your homework, and then relate what you like about them to why you're reaching out. So you do want to keep this part brief, but tell them about the position, a little bit about the company. You don't need to go into a lot of detail here. You just kind of want to whet their appetite a little bit. So you want to make sure that you mention just the really exciting parts, whatever it is that really makes the position and or the company stand out, like a great company culture or some of the awards the product has won, any recognition that's received, or any potential opportunities for growth. So there was a survey done by Manpower that shows about 20,000 job quitters and why they tend to leave their position. So, this is really good information for when you're trying to decide how to reach out to somebody, what you want to talk about. And I think what you can see here is that you can't really assume that you know what motivates a candidate and that you really need to ask. So you don't want to go off about all of the career opportunities the company has if they're really more concerned about the hours. Something that's really interesting here that I think a lot of people don't really realize is that money is only the third most common reason people quit. And ranking before it is limited career opportunities and lack of respect and support from a supervisor. And what I really found particularly interesting about this is that most people cite their supervisor as the reason they quit for multiple reasons, either a lack of respect or support, a lack of leadership, bad relations, lack of recognition, etc. So it may really work to your advantage to share some information about the company leadership, but only do so if it is actually good. You don't want to deceive anybody. So, as I mentioned a minute ago, that different candidates will find different things appealing. So when you reach out to them, you want to ask what it is that they would want if they were to make a move. You might find that it's something on this list, or it could be something completely different. Maybe they just want a shorter commute, for example. So if you do find that their interests align with the company, during this phone conversation is a great time to tell them how what they're looking for aligns with your position. And if not, you just want to let them know that this may not be the right opportunity, but that you'd like to keep them in your list for future opportunities. And only at that point is when you should ask for a referral. So this is what makes the phone a really great method to contact people initially versus email or in-mail or anything else, is that you can really have a conversation and you can gauge the candidate's interest, which allows you to adapt your strategy if needed. So you don't go off on a tangent about all the career opportunities when they really just want something that's a closer commute. So you also get a response from the candidate on the spot rather than giving them time to think it over, which a lot of the time makes them forget about your email or your in-mail. So just a quick side note here is that the phone may not actually be the best way to reach all of your candidates. So this is not an end-all be-all solution. What you want to do is test a couple of different things and see what works. So for example, if somebody's really active on social media, you might have a better chance contacting them on LinkedIn or Twitter versus phone or email because they're on those mediums a lot more frequently and they do actually check them more often. So another LinkedIn group discussion I was looking at was an experiment that a recruiter did. And what he found is that in-mails aren't really working very well, and I think that there's a lot of reasons behind this. So going back to the poll that we mentioned earlier, almost 50% of people would not want to hear from a recruiter with an irrelevant offer. The problem is that recruiters are still doing this, and candidates are really tired of it, especially the ones that are really high in demand, and they're getting a lot of reach out on the site. So a lot of the candidates have actually shut off their LinkedIn notifications so that they don't receive an email when they get an in-mail, which means that they're not seeing your message in a timely manner, even if it is relevant. So even some of my own friends, I'll write to congratulate them on a new position or, ask them about something that's happening in their company. And a lot of the time, they'll go weeks or months before replying to my LinkedIn message, and I actually know these people. So they always tell me that they didn't see the message until weeks and months later when they've actually logged into LinkedIn and looked. So what we're seeing is that all of the recruiters are kind of doing the same thing here. A lot of people are going to LinkedIn, they're trying to find candidates, and what they might benefit from is doing something a little bit different, so they can try and email or call the person personally whenever possible. And so this study that we're seeing up here is a recruiter. He actually doesn't have a huge sample size. He only reached out to 122 passive IT candidates, but he sent them all a short personalized message. And he used 3 different mediums. He used email, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And for each of those groups, he asked some directly, so that is if they were interested in starting a conversation, and he asked a couple others indirectly, meaning do you know somebody who might be interested? The best response rate he asked was asking for referrals on Twitter, actually. I think that was about 30%, followed closely by directly asking the candidate if they were interested on Twitter and directly asking them via email, which were both 29%. So all 3 of those did really well. So Twitter, both direct and indirect, as well as direct on email. Both of those direct recruiting methods resulted in nearly double the response as the same message on LinkedIn. So of those with the most non-responsive, those were the email indirect, LinkedIn direct, and LinkedIn indirect. So what we're seeing is, a lot of people are not responding to messages on LinkedIn. I think a lot of the time because they just don't get them, and a lot of the time because they're not relevant, and probably some of the other times just because the message sent to them wasn't interesting enough to pique their interest, and they're a passive candidate, and they don't even want to bother. Something that I thought was really interesting was the direct Twitter response rate. We saw that 86% of those that reached out, or those that were reached out to, actually responded, even to say if they just weren't interested. So Twitter ended up being, kind of a good winner here in terms of, reach out to people and they'll respond most of the time, even if just say, hey, no thanks. However, if you do still want to use LinkedIn, or if you have to because you can't find their contact information elsewhere, you want to try and keep your message short and to the point. I think about only the first 255 characters are delivered in the notification email that LinkedIn sends to them. So once you've piqued somebody's interest and they do want to respond to you, you want to make sure that you make it easy for them to show interest in you. So again, the phone call is a really great way to get this part done efficiently, because you can have a conversation about what their interests and their goals are, and then ensure that they align with the position that you have available. You can also use this time to schedule the next step in the recruitment process. So whether you're able to schedule something over the phone or via another method, such as email or social media, you want to make sure that you're being flexible with your scheduling here. So there have been a lot of times where I've been invited to do interviews on a certain day and time. So the company will reach out to me, and lately, the past couple of years, I've seen people say, "Hey, are you available tomorrow at 11 a.m.?" And the company's been unwilling to deviate from that time because they've already blocked that time period for interviews. So obviously, I understand it can be difficult to get your whole team in one place at one time to interview. Especially if you're interviewing multiple candidates, you have a block of time set aside. But if you think about it from your candidate's perspective, some of them might have other interviews scheduled, or maybe they are looking for a job while holding a full-time job, and they can't just take time off of work at 11 a.m. to go to your appointment. So anybody that currently has a job, either active or passive candidates, really might have a hard time sneaking out of the office. So it's best to try and accommodate different schedules and just show flexibility. One caveat to this is that when you're scheduling, it is actually best to offer a certain date and time so it's easier to close, so to speak. So if you call them or send them an email or you tweet at them and you say, "I'd like to schedule a phone call or a meeting sometime this week," you're not really giving the candidate a very strong call to action. Instead, if you say, "I'd like to set up a time to speak with you this week. Are you available Tuesday at 10?" You're able to allow them to give you a firm yes or no, and then you can negotiate a better time from there. So in a phone call, it's going to be a lot easier to negotiate that better time in case the time you originally proposed doesn't work. But in an email, you just want to let the candidate know that they may suggest an alternate time if they're unavailable at the time you suggested. Also, if you don't reach out to the candidate via phone, you want to give them multiple ways to contact you. So you want to make it really easy for them to show interest by giving them your phone number and your email address, because some candidates might prefer one method to the other. So you want to make sure that they have all of your options available. And this really goes all back to tip number 2. You really want to make this all about them. So if you want to recruit top talent, you need to start accommodating them and making it a lot easier for them to apply and to show interest in your positions. And on that note, if you want a higher response rate, you want to make sure that you're not asking candidates to jump through hoops for you. So, you don't want to send an initial conversation and say, if you're interested, please apply through our ATS. Or if you're interested, please take this assessment test. You want to wait at least until you've had a conversation with this person before you make them do anything that might be required by your company. But even then, asking them to formally apply might be a bit much, especially for candidates that you're reaching out to and may not have a resume handy. The final tip for today is to make sure that you're following up. So in sales and marketing, it's a general rule of thumb that you should reach out to candidates. Sales teams usually about 4 to 5 times. Marketing touches go up to 12 times to get somebody to respond. So recruiting really isn't all that much different, because you're marketing your job and you're selling your company to the candidate. So until you hear, "No, I'm not interested," you can keep following up. You've put so much time into sourcing these candidates, and to just give up on them and start sourcing again from scratch is so much more work than just following up with a simple phone call or email saying, "Hey, I never heard back from you from my last message. I just wanted to see if you were interested. Please get back to me." So you want to play around with following up to see what really works for you. But I'd recommend starting off with a phone call, like I said, and then following up maybe a day or two later with an email. So that way candidates that would rather email have your message to respond to. And then maybe 3 to 5 days later, I would call or email one more time, just letting the candidate know how interested you are in speaking to them. A lot of the time you'll find that they really just forgot to respond. Some of them might not be interested, but some people might have been interested and just really busy. So just really quickly here, I wanted to show you Bright Recruiter and how it can help you get better response rates. So Bright Recruiter is a very unique tool in that it's an automated sourcing solution where you go into the tool and you post your job description, and it automatically shows you the candidates that are in our system that would be a great match for your position. So by saving you all of the time from sourcing, what you're able to do here is let technology find you the best candidates, and then you actually get to spend that time reviewing the candidates, reaching out to them, getting to know them, following up with them, and not spending so much time on the nitty-gritty sourcing portion. Bright Recruiter also gives you all of their contact information, so if you prefer to call them or email them, you can do that. If you'd like to use the Bright messaging tool, you can do that as well. And if you really want to, you could send them snail mail, although I can honestly say I would never, ever, ever recommend that. So by having these multiple methods to contact people, you're able to reach out to them in a way that they're going to receive your message, and you're also able to have multiple ways to follow up with them. The other great thing about this tool, in addition to the tool qualifying candidates on your behalf, is that the candidates on Bright are all active and open to hearing about a new opportunity, which plays a really large part in our 70% response rate. So both you and the candidate can see that there's a great match between their background and your position. So you both know that the position is relevant, but on top of that, these people are actually interested in hearing about your position, so they're going to get back to you. So I'd really recommend everybody try out a free trial of Bright Recruiter. You can do that on bright.com/register/employer, and it's completely free to use for limited time. So you can just kind of check it out and see what it's all about. You can see if you can get a better response rate. Our clients do see up to 70% response rate. So that's it for today's presentation. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. If you have any questions about Bright or increasing your response rate, our products, or anything recruiting related, feel free to email me or send me a tweet. I love to talk about recruiting, so anytime you want to chat, please feel free. And again, I'd recommend everybody start a free trial of Bright.